The vice presidential candidates Tim Walz and JD Vance faced off in their only debate. And you know what? JD Vance was out there putting on a clinic. Joining me now to break it all down is Matthew Peterson, editor-in-chief of Blaze Media, and Dinesh D'Souza, renowned author and filmmaker. So Dinesh, thanks so much for joining us. So let's start with the debate. What were your thoughts? What were your main takeaways from JD Vance last night?
Well, I got to say, as a Dartmouth graduate, he vindicated the value of an Ivy League education. He was informed, measured, cosmopolitan, likable, and I think he delivered. It's a very important moment for him because Trump is getting up there. And so I think in some ways we, even if unconsciously, can't help thinking beyond Trump. And I think JD Vance proved last night that this is a guy with the intellectual ability and the emotional balance to sort of continue with the Trumpian spirit, if you will, beyond Trump. I think it also, in a way, was a vindication of Trump in a sense, because when Trump picked Pence the last time, people said, well, Trump is an alpha male. He doesn't like anybody else who will overshadow him. He doesn't like anyone else who's smart. He needs somebody who's very passive. But I think with Vance, you get somebody who has his own mind. It clearly is his own guy. And I think it speaks well of Trump that Trump not only went with Vance, but seems to genuinely like the guy.
Dinesh, do you think that this debate actually moves the dial in some way? Or how does it actually impact what's going on? Because, of course, in the past, so we all know, I mean, even scholars will say this, vice presidential debates don't matter. It feels like something about this matters, maybe. What do you think?
I think what matters is that in a sense, this is a case where the vice presidential pick on both sides is sort of aimed at going after the same audience, namely the white working class vote, which is decisive in a lot of the key states. Apparently, the Democrats think that Walz is a populist on the left to counter JD Vance, the populist on the right. But I think that the problem with Walz, to some degree, there are elements of him that are charming and that have a certain folksy quality, but he's so over the top that, at least from my sensibility, he borders on the ridiculous. And there's an element of insincerity, fakery, putting it on, and Kamala's like that too. So whereas JD and Trump are, whatever you think about them, they're both real authentic guys. JD is the way he is. Trump is a unique character, but Trump's not putting it on. Trump puts it on in the sense that he's a salesman. I mean, the burgers at Mar-a-Lago are the best burgers ever made and so on. So Trump has his shtick, but no one can deny that this guy is a unique individual.
I looked at censorship. That came up again last night. Tim Walz has talked about this previously before, right? He said, I don't run Facebook. But we know from a comment that he made back in 2022, he said there's no guarantee for free speech when it comes to misinformation. Now, you combine that with an apology from Mark Zuckerberg saying, I'm sorry that we worked with the White House in censoring so many Americans. What do you make of all of this?
He tried to get out of it, Tim Walz did, by invoking the sort of famous example of shouting fire in a crowded theater. But even though that's not really the law, the truth of it is that the stuff that they censor has nothing to do with shouting fire in a crowded theater. It has to do with people pushing back against the CDC, Rochelle Walensky saying that if you take the vaccine, you can't get COVID. You can't spread COVID. Or Fauci putting out what was clearly, he even now admits, a massive made-up idea that science requires 6 feet of social distancing. He's now said, no, we just kind of came up with that one. We just made it up. Well, they're censoring people who are fighting back against government-sponsored misinformation. And at no point did Walz even begin to defend that, even though that's something that the Biden-Harris regime continues to push.
All right, Dinesh, let's switch gears and take a look at your new film, Vindicating Trump.
We were able to purchase 10,000 ballots.
That's terrifying.
They cheat in many different ways. That's all they're good at.
Ready to save democracy?
We need to stop him permanently.
And that person will be risking his life.
Too bad it's not the 60s, right?
It's the way you survived.
And I said, get me up.
Trump has beaten back every attack against him.
like the damn Terminator. We're going to fix our borders, and we're going to fix our elections. We're going to win.
So Dinesh, without spoiling it too much, how has Trump been vindicated here?
The film really makes the case for Trump. You know, there are even Republicans who say things like, well, I don't like the guy, but, you know, I like his policies. Or they'll say, he needs to shut his mouth. Or people, in some ways, are angling for they want to rehabilitate Trump. They want a new and different Trump. And my point to them is no. For this particular crisis that we're facing at this time in the country, this guy is actually tailor-made for the job. He may not be the perfect guy in any other time. He's the perfect guy for our time. So Trump doesn't make the case for himself in the way that, say, Reagan did. Here are 7 reasons to vote for me. So the film and a book of the same title make that case. And the website is vindicatingtrump.com. That's where you can get movie tickets.
Dinesh, I find it fascinating, the arc of your career and life and this stuff, having followed you for a long time, was reading you when you were, writing these incisive books, and now you've long since made a sort of transition into really affecting the popular imagination and mind and making serious arguments in other ways. I'm curious though about that trajectory, because it's interesting. It's obviously related, but very different. I mean, talk a little bit about that personally.
I moved into the films thinking that a film is nothing more than the sort of setting a book to music, but it's not really true. A book is an argument. It's kind of like a legal brief with references and so on. A film is needs to be a narrative, a story. And a film is an emotional medium. That's why it has music underneath it. The score is the emotional script, if you will, of the film. And I think a good documentary film has all the elements of a good feature film. It has character, it has plot, suspense, narrative, climax. So I try to put all of that in the film, and I make them for the theater. You can watch it later by streaming on your computer or even your phone, but to see it in the theater with other people who are like-minded, it's a very unique experience.
What impact do you hope that this film makes?
I think that the film can have the effect of firing up and illuminating the Trump base, but at the same time, it will be very eye-opening for people who are moderate, undecided. The reason being, it brings out a private aspect of Trump. I have a kind of one-on-one with Trump. Trump is not the same in private as he is in public. So, for example, he's famously egotistical in public. He wants compliments all around. He loves to take credit. Ironically, in private, he's whimsical, he's self-deprecating, he shows a lot of attention to other people, he meets a doorman in the lobby, he knows the name of the guy's kid. So those are not the characteristics of a narcissist. So by bringing this out in the film, I enable people to see another side of Trump and see Trump in a new light. It's one thing to tell people about it, it's another thing in the movie to show it.